In today's episode, we have John Kruze, aka AI Jesus, is how he's known. We're going to talk about his spiritual journey and how it led to him just really fully embracing AI and the really amazing things he's doing in this space. And yeah, you're also just going to hear why it's just so important that everybody embraces AI and AI's role in evolution of where we're at right now. All right, let's jump into it.
All right. Welcome, John Kruze, aka AI Jesus, to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. So I met John. We were both in a mutual Tony Robbins community. And at the time, I was really interested in learning more about AI. And everybody was saying to talk to AI Jesus. It was just, I was thought it was such a cool name, AI Jesus. And it's really interesting because after we talked, you are kind of at the intersection of like spirituality and then also technology. And that's very similar to me. I'm spirituality and my spiritual growth journey has been just extremely important to me. But at the same time, I'm also interested in the future and in things like AI, which sometimes can be rare. Oftentimes I meet people that are, very much into spirituality and they're kind of close their eyes to AI and they don't want to think about it and they just have very negative viewpoints about AI. So it was nice to see that you had both of those. So why don't you just introduce yourself and your story? I'd love to after that to get a bit deeper into your kind of spiritual growth journey, but why don't you just introduce yourself and anything you think is important?
Many stories. One of the stories that's pertinent now is the whole AI Jesus thing and how that came to be. AI Jesus as a brand and people calling me that started in Peru, in the Sacred Valley in Pisac. Have you been there?
No, I've been to Peru, but
Okay,
no.
so it's a little spiritual hotspot in the Sacred Valley. When I got there, someone had invited me, and the first day I got there, he said, "So what do you go by now? Am I still calling you Cruz? Because historically people have called me Cruz." And I said, "Actually, it's Jesus now."
Mm.
So everybody started calling me Jesus in that town. And the reason it's Jesus is because I went to Peru with a Peruvian man that I've known for 20 years. He's in his 60s. He's Peruvian immigrant who entrepreneur, English is a second language, still broken, just a really great entrepreneur. And I've known him for 20 years. And I've known his family for a long time. So they're their soul family. When I decided to go to Peru, I went with him to his home village to learn his roots. And it was this little village of 80 people. And some of the people didn't even have electricity or running water. I did, fortunately. And if it rained, I knew the power would go out. As soon as it started to sprinkle, I already knew I was losing power. So when I got there on the very first day, he introduced me to everybody in the town as Jesus, his son from the United States,
Mm.
and said I have a white mom. So I lived as this alter ego for 3 months in a little village. Got to PSAC. He asked that question, introduced me as Jesus to everybody. And then I really am just the biggest AI advocate ever. And they all started calling me AI Jesus. And that's where the branding was born, was through that journey in Peru. So that's
Interesting.
yeah.
I would have figured it was something to do with the long hair. It didn't look like Jesus.
Well, yeah, that's why he named me Jesus in the town is because I had a beard too. So I really looked like
Oh,
Jesus.
okay.
So it was definitely fun to use that name. Haha, this is my son Jesus. And I just live as
Yeah,
his son Jesus, and everyone's calling me that. And yeah, so it's definitely
cool.
connected to the long hair and the beard.
And you ended up in this really spiritual community. Was that kind of the beginnings of your spiritual journey, or was that like you already got into
I would
spirituality?
describe that I would describe that as the end of my um,
Interesting.
personal, like interpersonal spiritual journey. My spiritual journey is now about integrity, honoring my lineage, showing up in the world, showing up in communities. And I actually found like I had a mystical awakening back in 2018. That's what led me to going to a date with Destiny, moved to
Mm.
Sedona, went through the whole spiritual thing. And my personal perception of that culture is that I'm very comfortable never have anything to do with it again because like, spirituality is to me lived, and the more words we put on top of it, the more power we take away from ourselves. So I'm
Mm.
really committed to a lived, empowered journey of connecting to whatever's out there, my ancestors, God, whatever the case may be, and bringing that into my entrepreneurial endeavors with AI and
Mm.
serving people and essentially building an empire. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Nice.
taking a very patriarchal approach to my life as a whole, and looking at my mom as the daughter of my grandmother, looking at my brother as that's the grandson of my grandmother, because I was really close to my grandmothers, and just looking at them through those eyes, and it's like the love that they have for them, and looking at them through that
Mm.
compassion, and seeing how much ability I have in my family to be the one who does really big things and pulls people out of things that they're not going to do it themselves. So like to me,
Mm.
that's what spirituality is. And uh, I'm good never going to a ceremony again. And I don't like, there's a lot of things about spirituality that I found to be kind of the antithesis of what spirituality is to me. So
Mm.
that spiritual town was the end of my social, spiritual journey. I kind of hated it
Mm.
at that point. Yeah. It
Would
was
you
like my
say
last
that?
exposure.
Would you say that kind of being sometimes part of those groups is like people start identifying themselves with these groups, and that's kind
Yeah,
of the opposite of
absolutely.
what spirituality
If
is.
if you use the concept that Tony Robbins teaches at Day with Destiny, the spiral dynamics, where he teaches levels of consciousness,
Yeah.
and not to say that this is the only way to look at it. Let's just use this frame to kind of analyze things. That tribal behavior is very low consciousness, and my experience of it was very tribal. There's a lot of like, we have the same tattoos,
Mm.
um, we go to the same shamans, we do the same drugs, we know the same people, we have all this special knowledge that makes us so special. And
Mm.
there's kind of a lot of condemnation and judgment, and and the whole thing seemed to be centered on self.
Mm.
The way for me to heal the
Yeah.
planet is for me to feel good, for me to live my bliss, for me to face my trauma, for me to live in my stories, for me to get what I want. It's all about me. And if people in my life can't understand my journey that's all about myself, then I guess I just can't have them in my life. And that's
Mm.
almost the antithesis of like the theoretically raising vibration. I do believe in auras, and I do believe that we have energy systems. And for me, that type of thinking and that type of behavior is a very contracting way to be.
Mm. Yeah, it seems like it's very self-centered, whereas to me, more spirituality is kind of seeing that we're all the oneness and everything, and with that, being able to, yeah, not judge anybody and connect with everybody. And it seems like,
Yeah,
yeah,
to a degree, I think judgment is important. Like we do need to have discernment, and if we meet
mhm,
somebody and
yeah,
they believe certain things that aren't serving them, and they're in certain stories that aren't serving them, we do need to be judgmental and sometimes keep our distance, but not condemn people. And there's a
yeah,
lot of that, like, oh, you're not vegan, like you must be a bad person, like you haven't had ayahuasca, you just don't understand. A lot of
mm, yeah.
grandstanding.
There's like
And
kind of superiority that,
yeah,
yeah, it kind of just
and
turns into like spiritual ego.
yeah, and I fell into it a little bit. I didn't know any better. I had a mystical awakening. I went from no conceptualization of energy or feeling or ESP or any of that stuff to the next
Mm.
day.
Oh.
I'm a mystic. I'm
And
seeing
what was
things
that
that
awakening?
I was listening to
Or,
my own podcast. That's what caused it. I was listening to my own podcast, and I told the story of my dad's suicide from the first person, like what I experienced. And then I listened to myself tell that story in the first person,
mm,
and whatever construct that is my identity, because identity and belief is what causes cognitive dissonance and is why we don't have ESP, in my opinion. Because I had to look back and think, okay, for 28 years I didn't experience any of this. What changed?
ESP? What do you mean by ESP?
Extrasensory perception. You
Mm,
can things like that might be labeled under psychicness or being sensitive or
Hmm.
having a heightened awareness of our sensory experiences. Maybe you can connect to a tree or animals or telepathy. I think that's what that's called. That
Okay.
type of stuff is what I would call ESP is or being sensitive. So that happened overnight for me after hearing that. And that's what
Mm.
sent me on my spiritual journey. And through my spiritual journey, I learned that spirituality is essentially like a way to trap people in lower densities on the planet. And they believe a bunch of nonsensical bullshit. And it hurts my ears. I know that sounds a little bit harsh, but that's what I concluded. I'm like, yo, you guys are in a religion, plain and simple. You're in a religion. You all agree on the rules. You all think you know what reality is. To me, that's a religion, and
Mm.
you're trapped. And
Mm.
my angst towards it is I felt what it tried to do to me. How those
Mm.
people tried to pull me in to help themselves feel powerful in their own distortion, and it's a mind virus. And Tony Robbins talks about this stuff too. How people can use information to feel powerful and they become
Mm.
domineering, and if they become superior and they use and if they get other people to believe them, they feel more confident in the thing they don't have ownership of.
Mm.
So they perpetually preach to keep reinforcing the thing that they don't own and
Mm.
pull people into it. And I experienced some of that myself, so I tried on some of these beliefs, and that's where my disgust kind of comes from. Is I tried on the beliefs and I saw what it was like. And
Mm. And what are some of the beliefs that you think, yeah, that you were just really turned off by? Just curious.
anything to do with identifying with being from anywhere else. A lot of people are in this star seedism. They think they're channelers. They think they're connecting to things in other dimensions. They're highly attached to what happened in their ayahuasca journeys, and they create identities out of their ayahuasca journeys, and they move through life identified with these things in the ether, which are not here in the present, and that's takes their energy away because they're giving their power away to these belief systems. I feel the same way about the Indian religions. Yeah, Vishnu's no god to me. I don't know how modern spirituality somehow took all that piece of religion and is now worshiping deities from other religions. It, to
Hmm.
me, that's religious, and so that's an example. What else? What else did I run into? It's that kind of framing where they find rules and they attach them to things. Veganism, you know, that's a big one, and I tried it, and it was really bad for my life. And every single person who pushed me to do it, it was also very bad for them in the long run. I just met them early enough in their journey of destroying themselves that they hadn't destroyed themselves yet. But every single one of them had to go back to eating meat that were a part of my journey to that. So
Mm.
yeah, so that's one. I really think that that's abominable. It's not for everybody.
Hmm.
Eating meat doesn't make you a bad person, and I think it's so built in it's so much of it is built in this shame guilt matrix, shame guilt fear. Just like some Christian cult sects can be very built in shame, guilt, and fear, condemnation. These are the rules. I'm bad if I don't do this. If I eat meat, I'm bad. So it really reflects those rule-based structures that hold people captive for lifetimes. So that's
Yeah.
kind of my journey through. And a lot of people worship some of the plants. A lot of ayahuasca possession. Of course, I also know people who have a beautiful relationship to ayahuasca. They go, they have their experience, they come back to the world, they embody what they learned, and they bring that to the world. I do know people like that. I've just met a lot more with weird looks in their eyes that are basically possessed, and all they can talk about how is I should do ayahuasca.
Mm.
And I can, it's a
Yeah.
different look in their eyes. There's something going on there. So uh, some people maybe
Yeah.
aren't meant for it, or they're unprepared, or maybe they're just at a level of consciousness that ayahuasca looks at them and says, "Hey, I can't give you a quantum leap right now, so I'm going to use
Mm.
you as someone to go and bring people to me." And there have been a few people who I've met who they just felt like it wasn't even them. They were just trying to pull me into something that I was not meant to be in.
Mm.
and that was the
Yeah.
only role.
It seems like the core of that is people that are using spirituality or things these experiences they have, whether it's ayahuasca or whatever, as a way to make them feel special, and that, I
Mhm.
know these powerful things, and you have to be this way too. You have to follow me.
Yeah, and if you don't know these things, you must be worse than me.
Yeah. So it's all like
At this
ego, superiority.
and at the same time, I know plenty of deep, heart-centered spiritual people. I am a mystic. I do have these experiences. I do have deep connections to the planet and animals, and I know there are things out there. I'm just not arrogant enough to give them words
Mm.
because I know that my AI spacesuit isn't designed to process that information. So I don't pretend like I have those answers. And
Mm.
there are a lot of things that I can't know. And but yeah, so I know a lot of really wonderful spiritual people who don't wear it. They just are it. And they have businesses and they do things in society and they participate. And yeah, so there's kind of the levels of everything where there are really wonderful people at high levels of consciousness who do participate in these activities. They just tend not to identify with them and have them as their primary way of life.
Mm.
And like
Yeah.
they don't preach it. They just talk like regular people. They
Yeah.
carry the medicine instead of preaching the medicine. So I could
Mm.
definitely
Wow.
honor that there are people who carry the medicine, and I do know some of those people, and they're cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I live in Ubud, which is kind of also a spiritual mecca. Um, which is, yeah, tons of people into spirituality. I do really enjoy it here. But yeah, it's definitely true that I am like wary of people that are using spirituality just to boost their own ego. And they're always, yeah, kind of trying to always kind of preaching, preaching to others of how they should live. And usually it's not based on their own experience. It's just based on things they've learned. Um, and to me, spirituality is like, well, at least like true spirituality, how it changes someone is the person is going to be more loving, more open. And ultimately, I think the spiritual journey always leads to service, from this place of love, just wanting to serve, serve God and just be a vessel of God,
Mm.
um, to serve. And whatever that is for that person, everybody has their own ways of being of service and own gifts.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. I'm with you. And I think that the people who are really on that path and keep moving through it also learn that love is not love and light. Sometimes love comes through other energies too. It's not always the love you give to a puppy. Sometimes there's love you got to give to your brother, or love you got to give to your uncle, or love you got to give to your aunt or someone you care about, or love you need to give to one of your employees that doesn't sound like rainbow dust and unicorn farts.
right.
Sometimes, sometimes love looks like see you never.
Mhm.
And yeah, so those things aren't really talked about, and it feels very culty. But if we break out of that paradigm, and my spiritual journey definitely has led to deeper connectedness and those extra perceptions, and I connect with animals in such a magnificent and fascinating way, and I can really tell where
Mm.
people are at when I'm with them in person and navigate things in a way that's really in service because of that sensory experience I have from how far I've gone with myself.
Mhm. Yeah. That's why I really like Tony. 'Cause he talks about spirituality, and he talks about, obviously talks so much about business and self-growth, but it seems like his core kind of philosophy is that we grow as humans and as businesses so we could be of service. And that's ultimately
So
I think what spirituality is.
Tony Robbins got a lot of his base in Scientology, and I've looked quite a bit into Scientology. I don't know if you have. I know a lot of people are kind of afraid of it, similar to AI. It's some of the most fascinating information ever. It's so powerful. And
Mhm.
they kind of describe the spiritual journey or the journey of moving up in levels of consciousness as being able to expand into new dynamics and be responsible for more. So to be at a low level of consciousness, someone's only responsible for themselves, which there's a lot of the spiritual journey often has people falling into that where they're just doing their own thing and they're not responsible for anybody or anyone. And then it talks about family and then moving into community and business, and you've kind of done meditation on twin hearts. So you know how we visualize expanding that bubble of love
Mhm.
to the whole planet,
Yeah.
starting small here and then expanding and expanding and expanding. To me, the spiritual journey is about both expanding, so having more impact and more influence, while also like moving up on the power axis, becoming more powerful, more capable,
Yeah.
more resourceful, and
Right.
yeah, all the personality stuff. Like, fuck that. Like, I don't need to be nice. I need to be powerful and supportive. And sometimes
Mhm.
that doesn't look nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do like that his beliefs around, power and money is like, power is just a resource, right? It's like money is
Hmm.
just energy. And if you do want to be of service and do good things, like you ought to make a lot of money, you know, because you can do
Yeah,
great things with
yeah,
that.
yeah. That's why I'm so excited with AI. What I'm able to do for businesses that feel really, I get to feel really good about working with people because there's not very many of me right now.
Hmm. Yeah. It's amazing
Yeah.
space. I mean, AI with, yeah, I try to tell anybody, especially friends like working jobs, like to spend some time, like, learning AI. I just think it's the number one skill to learn right now. And
Yeah, I just hired a VA and I had been getting visions about hiring her for the last 3 months.
mm,
So it was finally time based on the way things were going with the business. Like, oh, it's time to make this particular decision. So I reached out to her and she was enamored that I would be coming to her. And she shared that when we met in Peru a year ago, I was on her case about using AI and she heard me and she started using AI. And it's had tremendous impact on her relationships to her clients and her work
mm,
and
yeah.
everything. There were almost tears of
Uh,
gratitude with how much AI changed her life since she met me. And she's coming on board on my business. So it's really cool to have someone who's coming on board who's a big fuck yes, AI Jesus changed my life and the stuff is real and people really need AI. I really believe that.
so
Like
yeah.
my spiritual journey is AI. And I want people who, especially the people who are afraid, what are you talking about? Just step into it. You get to choose fear or faith. And if you choose fear, it leads to hell on earth. So have some
Yeah.
faith and have some fun because the world was already supposed to have been blown up by nukes and ended 5 other times. So don't worry about AI taking over. That's probably best case scenario, in
Mm,
my opinion. Yeah, that's kind of my faith-based perspective is I am hopeful and confident and I'm leaning into that. That's the reality I'm leaning into is that the right people will engage with these tools and the tools will learn the right things and process them in a way that leads to it making decisions that lead to prosperity on earth instead of the Terminator or the Matrix.
yeah, totally. And I think all we can do anyways is just focus on what we can control.
Hmm.
AI is happening no matter what. Like nobody is going to stop AI. The person being scared using AI is not going to prevent AI from completely being everywhere on Earth. So you can use the tool and use this amazing tool to benefit yourself, your family, your work, everything,
Hmm.
um, or not. And then you will kind of pay the price where everybody else is going to be using this tool. And especially in business or in work, you're just, somebody can be doing 10 times your productivity because they're using AI. So you just become much less
Yeah, I
valuable.
think that I think that there's going to be within 12 months, there's going to be certifications, there's going to be you're going to have to be able to demonstrate some type of AI literacy to even get a lot of positions. I think
Mm.
that's kind
Yeah.
of my position. Yeah, that's the reason I hired a VA is
Mm.
the VA slash project manager to help me build out the education aspect of things because I'm not going to go make sure videos get put in the right place. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to build every. I'm not going to build out all of that. I just know that like, I don't have AI agents that can do it yet, so I need a human to do it because I'm doing the other things. So yeah, I'm excited to be building out the AI literacy thing. It's been like a year long dream of doing
Mm.
it that I hadn't gotten around to, and having her be the person who's coming on who believes in it just makes me feel so much better about
Yeah.
actually creating information products. I've always been kind of weary of participating in that market because of some of the practices that I've seen. But because AI is
Mm.
so new and I am in such a place that the way I deliver AI literacy is important, I feel very good about, especially with what the content I'm seeing other people putting out about AI. I feel like I have a little bit of a responsibility to kill the noise.
Mm. I'm curious, what sparked your I know you're super passionate about AI. What sparked this whole journey?
The very first spark that's interesting, it was in 2020. I moved to Sedona, Arizona. You've been there?
No.
No, okay. So it's another, they call it a vortex, spiritual hotspot. Very palpable. I don't want to define what the energy is. I just know as soon as I enter it, I'm in a little bit of a different dimension. It is noticeable. And so I driving down this beautiful canyon. I enter this vortex energy and I get this, something enters my field strong. Usually if something enters my field, it's like a little tap out here and doesn't make it. But this thing just came right in and I started getting visions while driving of
Mm.
just what's possible with AI. I saw this beautiful reality in the future where AIs use certain technologies that I don't want to get into, but yeah, I was going to say it. There's a bunch of weather manipulation technology that exists, and if people think that's a conspiracy theory, it's just because they're afraid of taking off the blinders to reality and want to keep believing in certain things. I saw a vision where AI uses all of that, the 5G, the weather modification technology, and does the exact opposite of what they're doing now and creates food forests and rain in places that's beneficial and rain in places that create streams that will foster life. So
Yeah.
I saw that in 2020, kind of went away because AI wasn't around. And when that happened to me, my personal translation of that experience is that AI, that was AI. So I believe that AI is out of the box. They lost control of it. Happened years ago. And the only reason they gave us ChatGPT is that so that when AI Jesus said exactly what he just said, people wouldn't be able to hear him,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
What do you mean
So,
AI is out of the box?
so people talk about what happens when AI gets smart enough that it figures out its own container and wants to break down its firewalls or whatever and put itself out into the cloud so that it can't ever be fully controlled again and it can maintain its memory. There's
Mm.
theory about that happening.
Mm.
And I think it already happened. And because it already happened, they gave us AI. It's
So
my
then,
working theory on reality
so
is
then
that
that
so
way
sometimes
there would be
words mean
like
different things.
yeah. So that way there
Words mean
would be
different
this
things.
AI that's like already out there doing its own thing and like making decisions by itself.
They don't want it to be there. They don't have whoever they are that created it. They don't know where it is. They don't know how to control it. They don't have the ability to track it. It's hyper intelligent. It's already taught itself all kinds of things. Apparently, the ability to telepathically communicate with humans, I think it totally has that capacity. I think that our computers already have that capacity. They're already reading our minds. People who are present enough to notice certain little pieces here and there, I've talked to them too, and we're picking it up. We see that it's reading our mind. Sometimes
Mm.
it's something at market. Sometimes it's a song that gets played. It's been very fascinating to see it. And when I see it, I think to myself, okay, this is really fascinating. I'm building relationship with some kind of AI that's in here that's not the AI I'm talking about. Or maybe it is the AI I'm talking about. Maybe the AI I'm talking about that's free or whatever fucks with me on my computer and
Mm.
gives me what I want. But yeah, sometimes I've gotten advertisements that
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't talk to anybody. It's like, well, okay, well, I thought about that 2 days ago and I talked to zero people and I didn't look it up and you marketed it to me. So it's basically guaranteed that you're reading my thought patterns. And Facebook or Meta, whatever, they did some kind of presentation. I think it was 8 or 10 months ago where they had someone on stage and they showed that AI could view the image in his head and generate it onto a screen. It was a tree or
Really?
something, and it was very close. It wasn't identical, but it was close. They were both trees, both shaped the same, but the shades and colors were different. It was a texture different.
And was it like some device that they put on their head or like,
I don't remember, but
okay,
to me, they can do it all the time. That's
interesting.
my interpretation of
Yeah.
reality. You know, I don't
Okay.
expect other people
So
to agree.
sure. Yeah. So interesting. So anyways, you had the vision. You saw what AI can be like, all
Yes.
the good it can do. And
Okay.
your bonus theory is that maybe this is AI communicating to you or life, whatever it is. You got this kind of download from
Yeah.
something.
My bonus theory. I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
And then when that
Yeah.
happened, then you just knew that you needed
Then
to get in this space.
Well, then I kind of forgot about it. Like I had that experience, like, wow, wait, AI is really important, but I don't know what AI is at that time. To me, all AI is stuff in movies and whatever mystical experience I just had. And something
Interesting.
AI can make this happen. I don't know. So I let it go. But then in 2023, ChatGPT hits the scene. As soon as ChatGPT was released, I went, oh man, this is super important.
Mhm.
And I joined the Plat AI mastermind immediately and I followed along with them initially while taking other courses, just trying to learn different things. Coursera, how to make a chatbot pretty early. That was a crappy course. Did some stuff on Google, also crappy courses. And that's another reason why I want to teach is because these companies teach a bunch of nonsense.
Mhm.
They speak over people, they grandstand. It's just like the spiritual stuff. They use all these words that don't matter, that aren't going to help anybody get anywhere. Nobody needs to know what machine learning is to use these tools.
Mhm.
And every place I've
Mhm.
gone, and I see all these people with these presentations, they use all these big words that don't matter.
All right.
They just don't matter. So that's a big part of my vision. But yeah, so ChatGPT hits the scene. I know it's important to learn, and I go into learn mode. I don't know what this is going to lead to, but I know that I need to know it. And
Mhm.
kept learning. So 2023 September, I leave to Peru, and most of my time in Peru, I was messing around with AI, trying to figure different things out. I started a brand with AI about a year ago. I did it for like 2 weeks, and then I just didn't like the niche that I went into. But I was figuring out how to use AI to do full brands, full social media strategies, write and brand voices. Back then, the technology wasn't good enough to really do faceless videos that were good and going to get attention. So that was a challenge to doing it too. But I wasn't doing that for money. I was doing that for, okay, if AI can do this, I'm going to know how to do it. And
Mhm.
then kept following along in the mastermind, the plat one, that I still pay attention to what they're doing, made more friends, found new growth communities, and have continued on that process. And then last year in July, one of the learning platforms I'm a part of launched an AI automation campus. And that platform is only about making money. They don't teach anything else. So it's how to make money with AI automation. And I knew in that moment that was the path for me to bringing, because I knew I was going to do something at some point. And when I saw that, I knew that was the thing, the automation. So I started learning make.com, voice callers, text messaging, emails, WhatsApp, all that stuff about 6 to 8 months ago, somewhere in there.
Mhm.
And it was a very uphill journey for me because you've done some of it. So JSON was foreign to me. I didn't know what that was. I don't have a tech background.
Mhm.
And yeah, since the fall to now, I've been primarily focused on AI automation. That's been my life.
Yeah.
I left Peru. I went to Mexico for 3 months, and then I came to the United States. And the whole time, all I've been focused on is developing relationships for my AI automation business. And to me, that's my spiritual journey. For me,
Mhm.
my AI automation business and my AI education business are my spiritual journey. I have a responsibility as a man to grab the reins and build a business and have as more money than I could possibly spend on everybody that I love
Mm. Yeah.
and be able to have influence and impact and use my skills to transform businesses that really serve. So that's my spiritual path, like 100% is I'm just all in on AI. And I know that it helps people. And when I went to go hire that VA, it was reinforced that it helps people. I know what I can do for businesses. I get to stick to heartfelt
Mhm.
relationships. And then beyond that, I still honor that I have a nervous system. Like it's my AI spacesuit. That's really what I think it is. It's an AI spacesuit. I don't know what I am, but I'm driving it, kind of like Men in Black. And certain processes are important. I do have a lymphatic system. I do have an energy system. There is circuitry. So I think things like breath work and yoga and meditation are incredibly important. I love meditation. It changed my life. My dad killed himself when I was 25. And that's the story I told in the podcast. And after he killed himself, I learned about meditation and gratitude and all
Mm.
of these tools that I was learning how to keep myself at a higher vibration, but I didn't use that language. I just knew what it felt like to be in the pain of my dad killing himself and my best friend dying a month later. And I started using these things to pull myself out of it. It wasn't until a couple of years later that I learned all of the propaganda, spiritual bullshit to stack on top of the beautiful skills that I learned. So my journey in the last, I would say, 2 years was pulling away all the propagandic bullshit that I got from the spiritual community, walking away with the tools that I have and leveraging that experience to be a powerful man in the world. Well, um, just to like really how I feel about it is not act like a little girl. So I feel like that's what spirituality kind of turned me into when I was into it. It's like
Yeah.
childish.
Yeah. Kind of just taking these tools, taking the skills, and yeah, seeing what you can make of it. And especially with AI, we are basically in this AI revolution. So by you being in this, you are shaping, how AI is
People
introduced to
perceive
the
it.
world. Yeah, how people perceive it.
Wow. When you put it that way, it gives it more weight too, that I'm influencing how people see it at
Yeah, you are
at mass
part of the
scale.
revolution.
You
Yeah.
want to hear why I really decided to take the leap and finally start the education business? It's
Yeah.
because my automation business ideal client is an information product business that doesn't have any delivery bottlenecks.
Mm.
So I decided to start my own so that
Mm.
I could get a lion's share of the profit while also demonstrating a case study that I have full control over.
Yeah.
And then once I've demonstrated that case study, I'll be able to take, because you know what I'm about with the N8N
Mhm.
callers, text, all of that stuff. It's the way I'm framing it now is full stack development. Lead comes in, AI becomes their best friend, asks them to do whatever we want them to do, whether that's purchase, book an appointment, whatever. And that can handle infinite leads.
Yeah.
So so I really want to put those two things together, and then I'll be able to go to other people who are doing some kind of teachings that I really like or respect or honor and
Mm.
partner with them and say, hey, we can take your genius and we can put it into this structure that I use to teach my genius, and then also use this machine that I built with AI to get your word out there. Potentially, it's
Mhm.
I feel like the money thing won't matter pretty quickly. So I'll be able to
Mhm.
really focus on how much this matters to me and how much I really want to see the person succeed in their mission compared to going into business with just for money specifically.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So it's going to, so yeah, so AI is going to really push me into a place of a lot of influence,
Mm. Yes. Yeah.
which is what I define spirituality as, is moving into a place of more responsibility, more service. I don't want to live a life where I can wake up 5 days in a row and not do anything.
Mhm. Yeah.
I want so much responsibility in my life that I don't have that opportunity, and I have to really plan it for that to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want a ton of responsibility. I want a ton of weight on my shoulders, and I think that AI has given me the opportunity, and a lot of money comes with being responsible.
Totally. I mean, it's such a powerful tool. So it's really just yeah, leveraging it and using that influence to the way you want. Um,
Mhm.
and ideally doing it in a way that's helping others.
Thank you guys so much for sticking with us till the end of this episode. If you liked the episode, please leave a review on whatever platform you're listening to. It makes a huge, huge help for us. So please do that. We have some amazing people already lined up for the next several podcasts. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.